mechanism inside the
It's like a real house, isn't it?
It's a real house.
Is that turning on a
It's the clockwork, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Would you like to get Andrew? Jill, could you sort Andrew and his wife a drink which I do a lot of cooking on. And at the moment you can see that we're cooking a leg of mutton. And this is actually some very nice Herdwick mutton, local, really well looked after as well. And it's rotating in front of the fire on an apparatus which is called a bottle jack. This was invented in the 1780s by a man called William Fremantle, and it basically is a mechanised version of a much older method called a dangle spit or a rack spit, where you just had a string with a weight on it, you hung a piece of meat on it, and you gave it a flick every now and then, and the string would wind up. You know, if you do that with a piece of string, like with your telephone, if the cable gets. And it basically has got a verge escapement inside it, which regulates the movement. So it's got a spring which you wind up. But it's a very good way of roasting. And it was also a good way of roasting for people who weren't that well off, because they could do it in front of a smaller fire. This mechanism here is also a jack, but it's a type of jack that will run a horizontal spit, which will hang on this chain. If I wind that up and get that flying, this chain will rotate. I can't put a spit across there at the moment because this one will get in the way. But I could have equally just roasted that joint on a horizontal spit as well. It doesn't make very much difference. But what's underneath there, it looks rather black and burnt, but it's not. It's a potato pudding, which is a northern dish which dates back to probably the middle of the 18th century. It was very common in Scotland. And the technique of cooking it is called firing. So when you put a pudding underneath the meat and you allow the gravy to drip on it, and the pudding toasts in front of the fire, you're told to fire a pudding. So it's a sort of old term. And it's superb. It hasn't been there the whole time. We've allowed the mutton to shed its fat. And then the minute it starts to drop gravy, which it's doing now, excuse me, I did have a glass of wine. It will add a lot of flavour to that wonderful pudding underneath, which is very highly seasoned. It's quite peppery,
That's like a starter, isn't it, hearing all this?
Sorry about this tickle in my throat. Now, we're going to start off with a soup, which I mentioned earlier before Andrew came, which is really our most archetypal Christmas dish, which is called Christmas pottage or plum pottage. And we're going to have with that some havercake, which is this cardboard. And to make it, you basically need a big board called a backboard. Oh, there's the one, you need that. Excuse me. And originally, you had a big board with a kind of concave lip in it. And you made a dough out of hot water and fine oatmeal. You take about 6 ounces of fine oatmeal and you pour about 125 mils of boiling water into it. Sometimes it's a bit more, sometimes a bit less, a bit of salt. And make it into a thick porridge, which you can handle. As soon as it's hot enough to handle, quickly knead it, throw it on the board with a bit of dust on it, a bit of oatmeal dust. And originally you clapped it with your hand, but you end up getting carpal tunnel syndrome when you do that. And they must have done. There must have been a syndrome called clap-cake hands.
Is that what the phrase to be clapped out?
No, I don't think so. Or have a cake elbow, I don't know. But some wag in the 18th century invented this thing, which enables you to roll the very sloppy oat dough out without it sticking. and this is called a havercake roller. So far, if you're making it, you need your God-given havercake clapper, which is not very good, because it wears out very quickly, especially when you're making thousands of them. A backboard, which is the wooden board for rolling, and then a havercake roller. And then
It looks like a Cambridge roll, which is used on corn, on seedbeds.
that's right, exactly.
Similar
Yeah.
style.
It's because it's all very similar. There are rolls like this in Italy, which are used for making various types of pasta. But this is really for making havercake. Now, once you've got it rolled out to about that size on the board, you've got to get it off the board. And it's very, very fragile.
Wait,
It's very-
wait.
Come on, can you keep him in the kitchen?
Yeah,
I think.
okay.
And what you need is one of these. And this is called a thigh ball. It's a type of peel with a very sharp metal edge on it. And these must have been very common at one time in this region. So once you've rolled it out, you put the thigh ball underneath. It's a pity I can't demonstrate, but I had to make them earlier on. And you pick up your sheet like that, and then you put it onto a thing which is called, this is called either a backstone or in this case a girdle. And this sits on a little stand called the brandreth. Just lock him in, Joe, would you please?
A three-legged thing.
Yeah, a thing called a brandreth, which is a tripod stand. There's one, I can get one out later and show you. And originally when they had downhearth fires burning wood on the ground, that would sit on the brandreth over the embers. And you'd use your thigh ball and you put it onto your girdle and brandreth. So far we've got havercake roller, backboard, girdle and brandreth, thigh ball. While it's cooking, you don't want it to stick. So you have another little instrument which is called a sputtle. With your sputtle.
All good words for Scrabble.
They're great words, aren't they? With your sputtle, you stop it from sticking, and it's like a spatula. But when you're ready to turn it over, you've got to get the thigh ball underneath it again, then you quickly flip it over. Okay? Now you see girdles, often for sailing junctions.
Yes.
There's one under the stairs with a curved thing, and for hanging on a sway or a chimney crane. And you can do it over, but you need a fairly slow fire. You don't want a roaring fire like this one, because you'll just burn them straight away. So you cook them on both sides. This is the Westmoreland way of doing it. And then when you've been cooked on both sides, you put them on a napkin to rest them. So you needed a napkin as well. And then what you did then was you then used something like this. This is called a havercake maiden. And it's a little easel. This one is actually a copy of one that's in the York Castle Museum, which came out of a farmhouse near Slipper. So this is a very local style of doing it. And you put your kind of almost, it's never hard at this stage, it's kind of flexible, and you put them on there, not too close to the fire, like I did earlier on, because I burnt one actually trying to be clever. And then Andrew came, and you see this one here, that was a result of me being. This is another type here. Can you see this one here? You can put it there, but this is a little bit too hot for using that really. You use a much lower fire to dry them out. See? And once they're cooked, they can be stored in a bread oven for a long time. And they keep pretty crisp. Okay? So that's what I'm going to do is just talk about all the food and have in one big go. I think I'm just going to eat it. I can just get it all over.